when Disney announced that they were going to make another Indiana Jones movie, I was really skeptical, as were a lot of people. I mean, after all, The Kingdom of the Crystal Skull wasn't really the best movie in the franchise. I really wanted it just to stay to the three movies. I think if they'd have done that, it would have been one of the greatest trilogies in cinematic history. However, they wanted to do another one. It didn't do very well. So I thought that would be it. But no, after Disney took over the franchise, they wanted to do their own sending off for Indiana Jones, and that turned out to be the Dial of Destiny. Now, I have to say that this movie is not what I was hoping it was going to be. It's far worse than I was hoping it was going to be. But why? Why is it bad? Why is it that bad? And why has Disney failed really to capitalise on anything in the box office lately? Well, that's what I'm going to be talking about today. So don't forget to subscribe if you want to hear more about pop culture. And also click that notification bell and like the video if you like it. So here we go. I think that there are many reasons why Disney aren't quite hitting the mark at the moment. One of them has got to be, and this is probably one of the main reasons I think, and that has got to be the writing. Now, I realise that there are a lot of people who blame Kathleen Kennedy, there are lots of people who blame Bob Iger, and so, there are lots of people who apportion the blame in different areas. I think one of the main reasons why they're failing is because the writing is so poor. Now, you can talk about reasons for that. There are many reasons why that could be the case. Obviously, they're not writing the kind of things that people want to watch in the cinema. And when you do something like The Dial of Destiny, where you are actively trying to deconstruct a character, that can be very hard to do. And the only way that can really work is if you deconstruct them and then reconstruct them, perhaps even stronger, by the end. With Dial of Destiny, that doesn't happen. They deconstruct Indiana Jones, they pull him apart, and they don't put him back together again. So you end up with a film that is basically Indiana Jones being destroyed with no happy ending. And that, for many people who go to the cinema, is going to be simply too much for them to deal with. Now, of course, this isn't the first time they've done this to Harrison Ford. They also did it in Star Wars. But I think that in this situation, it's probably a bit worse, because at the end of the day, at least you had Han Solo, trying to do his best and trying to get things done and trying, to do his part for the Resistance. However, with Dial of Destiny, he's just there for the ride. He's there with Phoebe Waller-Bridge and that little kid who I can't quite remember his name. Anyway, they are the main protagonists. They are the people who are doing the most work in the movie. Indiana Jones is kind of just following along for the ride, which is fine if he had some kind of contribution to the whole movie, but he doesn't. He just kind of follows along, gets himself into trouble, doesn't really get himself out of trouble either. It's usually Phoebe Waller-Bridge and the boy that help him get out of trouble, or sometimes they don't. Sometimes they're the ones that put him in trouble, and he just gets out of it in some other way. And that, yes, he's 80 years old. Yes, this is the final movie in the franchise, I hope, but I do believe that there is a fundamental issue here with the writing. I think that they needed to bring in writers who can write for this type of genre, because let's face it, Disney don't have any writers that can write for the types of movies and series they're making at the moment. I don't know why. When you think that Indiana Jones had a £300+ million budget, they could have spent some money on getting decent writers, but they didn't. And I think that is one of the main issues we've got here. We've got writers who think they can write an Indiana Jones movie, whereas actually they can't. And what you need is, yes, if you want to bring in a strong female character, if you want a female character to replace Indiana Jones, there's not necessarily anything fundamentally wrong with that. However, the way you do it is very important, because if you bring in a character like Helen, who is Phoebe Waller-Bridge, and you make her absolutely awful, you make her a terrible character, you make her full of the worst characteristics you could have in a person. If you then want that person to go on and star in their own Indiana Jones movie, you're making a rod for your own back, because nobody's going to want to see that character in their own movie, because they're going to be like, well, she was absolutely awful. She was one of the worst characters in the whole movie. Why would we want to go and see a series or a TV show or a movie with them as the lead? That's not something that's going to be attractive to viewers. And that is the main problem, I think. If they had done this in a better way, if they had written this script in a way that was going to, keep the notion, keep the the values, keep the ethos, keep everything about Indiana Jones that we've all come to love, keep that, but introduce another character to kind of take over, I think that would have gone down slightly better, and I think people would not have been so adverse to this movie as they are. But Will they be able to scrape through it? Well, apparently, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny has now made its budget back, which is about 300 million. But of course, there are other things you've got to take into account in that situation. It's not just the budget. So they're still going to be losing money if it stays as it is. I don't think they will. I don't think they'll break even. I think they will lose money on this movie. And then they've got to look at themselves, and they've got to look at why this is happening. Introduce strong female characters, fair enough, but don't have writers who simply cannot do that effectively. That's my main issue anyway. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this whole subject though. Let me know down in the comments what you think about this whole situation about Indiana Jones and indeed the writers at Disney in general.